Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Docs Huddle, your gateway to an in-depth connection between sports medicine and the latest events in sports, fantasy, and betting. Today's show is brought to you by the Health and Wellness Depot. Unlock the power of well-being. With me, as always, Dr. MJB, the legend, and CJ, the sports enthusiast. Welcome, boys. Today, we're going to be reviewing the fantasy football defenses. So we're going to be ranking each one of these teams based off of their personnel, their production last year, and what we're projecting them to be able to do this year to help everyone better choose the right defense for their fantasy football teams in their upcoming drafts this season. With that being said, Dr. MJB, take us away, please.
Okay, so just to give you guys a quick rundown on how I went about looking at my list, what I included was how well these teams produced last year, their ability to get after the quarterback, and then their ability to create turnovers. Okay, so last year's production, ability to sack the quarterback, and ability to create turnovers are extremely important in choosing the defensive rankings. So without further ado, let me show my rankings. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so for me, hands down, I had to go Cleveland Browns. I don't think there's a better defensive depth chart that I love more than the Cleveland Browns. I think they have the front seven that complements the back four extremely well. They get pressure and they create turnovers. I think Dallas are just studs up front, right? So when they bring pressure, it creates havoc for everyone else. And you have a corner who reminds me a lot of Asante Samuel, but that's, another day, another topic. Trayvon Diggs, who, listen, he'll take chances, and a lot of times he gambles and he gets home. So because they create turnovers in the secondary and they get after the quarterback with Dexter Lawrence and Micah Parsons, I have Cowboys number 2. And then I have San Fran number 3 because holistically their defense kind of rivals that of Cleveland Browns. The only reason I have Cowboys ahead of them is because I think their pass rush is a little bit better. But I think head and shoulders, these three teams, in my opinion, are just the cream of the crop when it comes to defensive rankings and defensive teams choosing for fantasy football this upcoming year. Following that, I have Baltimore Ravens. I like the Ravens defense overall. I don't think that they have the same pass rushing capability as the other three, even though they have some quality pass rushers there. But those guys just stand out alone. I think I have Baltimore, Jets, and Pittsburgh all ranked similarly. And for me, Pittsburgh, even though they have some holes, when you have a bad man in TJ Watt, it's going to project it to be higher than you actually should be. So those round out my top 6. I have the Eagles number 7. I think that they finally get the secondary they need to complement their front 7, and that in itself should create pressure. I think losing Hassan Reddick does hurt them, which is why I don't have them higher. But I do like them at the 7 spot. I think Jacksonville's coming. They have some really good coaching there. I love Detroit Lions there. And then the last 3 were up in the air. I think the top 9 defense, you're definitely getting quality there. Dolphins, I think they took a step back. They lost some guys. New Orleans Saints, those guys are starting to get older, but they're still playing quality defense. They're still playing quality defense. And the Bengals, I know in another segment we ripped the Bengals defense. Yeah, but hear me out. They do pass the criteria. They do pass the criteria in pass rush. So for that alone,
you don't say. Coming from the gentleman who destroyed the Bengals just a few shows ago. Okay.
As I was looking at my list and I had them there, I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to get some backlash for this."
Oh, you know it.
I don't care. but because they can get pass rush, I think that's what sets them apart. I have no faith in their secondary, but I think pass rush alone is what gets them 12. But I'm curious to hear you guys ranking, because for me, honestly, after 9, it was like, there could be a lot of change here, and it could differentiate from a lot of us. Obviously, the top 9, the ordering will be a little different, but I think when you get into that 10, 11, 12, it's like you're hoping for more than what you may have actually seen already.
I agree. Well, I'm going to respond by just sharing mine as well, and you can we can kind of compare a little bit here. So, So I had some difficulty with this list. I'm not gonna lie. I was up and down with a couple of these teams, and so, dude, I took the Bill Belichick approach to analyzing the Baltimore Ravens in sense of he cares so much about what that secondary could do, right? At least when he was with the Patriots, dude, the Baltimore Ravens secondary is unbelievable.
It's phenomenal.
Okay?
Phenomenal.
It's
phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
Kyle Hamilton, Eddie Jackson. They got Eddie Jackson, bro, from the big Marcus Williams, Marlon Humphrey. We can continue on and on and on. Listen to me. Roquan is their middle linebacker. He is the quarterback of that defense.
So
he's only getting better.
They should be going to the Super Bowl, but continue.
Yes, well, yes, and anyone who saw our previous episodes on our rankings, absolutely. But I'm going to give the Baltimore Ravens this one. Now, I understand your concept because normally when you're thinking fantasy defenses, we're thinking pass rush, sacks, things of that nature. So I don't disagree with you, and that's kind of how I approach almost the remainder of this list. But just because I think that you're going to have DB University in Baltimore this year, I am hyped to see what this team can do. I mentioned it with Derrick Henry in the offense. I'm saying it again with the defense. They're my favorite for the Super Bowl. They're my favorite for everything this year. I am going with the Baltimore Ravens as my top-ranked fantasy defense. Cleveland, I mean, my lord. Do I have to say anything? Do I have to say anything? I mean, they got everything. Pass rush. They got the DBs. They got it. The linebackers. You name it. I love the Cleveland Browns defense. I think that's good. I like them as my number 2. New York Jets, I thought was interesting. On paper, they have an unbelievable defense. It is the New York Jets. They are prone to disappointing in every way, shape, and form. Despite that, I'm going to take the leap of faith and say that the Jets are going to be in more games, okay, and where they don't have to only rely on their defense like they did last year because of their offense improving with Aaron Rodgers this year and everything else we discussed earlier. So I'm taking them at number 3. San Fran at number 4, unbelievable. You can make the argument that they should be number 2. They should be number 3.
I was going to say the top few there is like you could reorganize them so many different ways.
Yes, I'm okay with it. So if you end up in my book with 1 through 4 on my list, you got a tier 1, and I'm going to explain why I have the Cowboys at the top of tier 2, and that's because they do not know how to stop the run. They do not know how to stop the run. They're still trying to figure out how to stop the run. They don't know how to do it. They couldn't do it last year. Their linebacking core is decimated, which is why I believe they're moving Micah from edge back to outside linebacker, right? So he had all that production, right, last year. They lose their defensive coordinator, now coaching the Commanders. So we don't know what that defense is really going to look like at the helm of their new defensive coordinator. Assuming Trayvon Diggs comes back completely healthy from the season-ending injury he had last year, I still think that their production is going to be good. And I think that if you get the Dallas Cowboys as your defense in fantasy, you should be very happy. But I can't put them ahead of those top 4. Pittsburgh Steelers, everything you said, Mike. They have an unbelievable defense with T.J. Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick. They're very, very good, right? Cam Hayward. Again, if I'm sitting there and I'm like, damn, I got to get the Steelers, I'm not going to bat an eyelash and say, okay, I'm set at defense. I'm very confident in my top 6. I'm not confident in my bottom 6 at all. And so, I know you were mentioning your 10, 11, 12 was difficult. Dude, you can throw all these in a hat and pick one out, and I'm going to be okay with it. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles, I dropped them down to 11 because of age and the loss of Hassan Reddick. And I just don't think that their pass rush is going to be as dominant as it has been. Jalen Carter has to step up. These new Jordan Davis has to step up. These younger guys have to now be what guys like Fletcher Cox used to be, who's no longer going to be there. So because of that, I'm a little concerned. Their defensive backs last year were abysmal. I know they had an amazing draft this year that should help fix that problem. We haven't seen it yet. So that's why they're down there at 11. They have that production. Boom, they're jumping up to the 7th spot, maybe even the 6th spot, and they're having an unbelievable season. So if you want to take a flyer, you can take the Eagles. And I'm going to say the same thing with the Jacksonville Jaguars. At 12, I put them down there because they have potential, but I'm used to being disappointed by them. You had them earlier in your list, Mike, and I support it. I think that they can easily jump to the number 7 spot above the Dolphins. Again, I just need to see it. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you basically spoke for my entire list. I have the top that is very similar. And, I've got Philly rated a little bit higher. I think that their secondary makes up for, I know pass rush is extremely important, but since they just had such a great draft with the secondary, and I think it's strong enough where it'll help offset a little bit here and there. So I think that they have the potential to jump this list and possibly go up to that 7th spot, which is about where I have them. But I'll let MGB comment, and then I'll share my list to finish off with the differences.
Sure.
I think the favorite thing the best thing I like about your list, Mike, is the Dolphins, right? And I'm not saying this because hometown team, but the Dolphins were decimated by injuries at pass rusher last year, dude. And you get all of these guys back, man. You can.
Jalen Ramsey's coming back healthy too.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
wreak havoc.
Football season healthy.
You can wreak havoc. I'm already enamored with their secondary, despite not knowing the second corner. But you get that pass rush back healthy, dude. I think that, man, it makes a world of a difference. Every week, it was just a guy going down, a quality guy too. It's not like, oh, that's just some backup. No, they probably had the most in-depth depth chart when it came to pass rushers last year, and all of them got hurt. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, so if you get all of them back healthy and they play up to par, I think they can jump into that top 6 range. I'm surprised how bullish you are on the Eagles. I know they lost a lot, but I think because, like you said, they had a quality draft with the secondary, and they're moving James Bradbury to safety now, which I think is a really good move because, man.
I think it's a desperation move, and I think that they're not going to release him because of the cap casualties that happens. Sure, that's why that's happening.
Yeah,
for sure. But yeah, I agree. Well, he can't play at corner anymore, so moving him to safety is just trying to find a solution, a place to put him based off of the money you're paying him and the cap casualties you'll have by releasing him.
Yeah,
Listen, I think that the Philadelphia Eagles is going to they will be a good defense. I just don't know if I like them for scoring me fantasy points.
Yeah.
That's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
That's my biggest. Listen, I could be wrong. Like I said, they could jump to that 7th spot, but I'm not. If the Miami Dolphins are on the board, I'm not taking the Eagles over them. That's my point.
You don't feel like Buffalo lost a lot too?
Yeah, that's my one thing that I'm a little worried about. You'll see my list. I'm a little iffy on Buffalo. Let me throw out my list.
I'm iffy on all these teams, to be honest with you. But yeah, 7 through 12. 7 through 12. When I say I like them in the 7 through 12 spot. When I say I'm iffy with them, I don't mean that I don't have faith in my choices. It's just I think that they all have potential to fluctuate based off of where some of these teams show progress after like the draft and so on and so forth. So I think that exactly. So I think that like the Miami Dolphins, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Philadelphia Eagles, I think all of them have the potential to be the top 3 out of that list. But I still I included the Texans, I included the Bills. The one that I did not include, which I know Christopher had just squeaked in here, that the team in white is New Orleans Saints, simply based off of age. And, I think if they're getting a lot of fantasy points, it's going to be based off of the fact that they're in a pretty, sorry, Mike, not good division.
Yeah. And
a lot of mistakes made by their divisional opponents who they get to play twice a year. So I think that is going to be maybe where they see the bulk of their fantasy production. But I think if you take the New Orleans Saints, there's going to be a lot of up and downs each week where it's like, ooh, they did okay. Ooh, they didn't, But anyway, Chris, go ahead and share.
Yeah, so I know you had 49ers a little bit lower. I think that the 49ers with their defensive line, and I love their linebacking core and just everything else. I think they're great, but I think the biggest takeaway for me, I think the top 3 defenses that I have listed are just going to be great. Bottom line, I think they're going to be great. And I could reorder those top 3, and I could probably argue them a different way and
Yeah.
make them all fit. For me, I still have the Jets here at 5. I just all my life the Jets have been disappointing. So for me, it's just they have the talent. There's no question about it. Talent's there. They should produce. They should be great. Am I going to draft them if I can avoid it? I don't know because they're always a disappointment for me. So I'd still like to see them prove it before we all say, oh, they're for sure. And again, they should. They have the players too. There's no question. And then, I think other biggest takeaway is here. I've got Philly. I like what you said about the Dolphins. I could see me maybe moving the Dolphins up to that Philly spot and kind of like tinkering around that edge. I love the fact that Jalen Ramsey's coming back. But Philadelphia produces players. I still think that they have a really talented defense to jump into that 7th spot. So I think it's possible. And I also think it goes hand in hand with their offense is so explosive, right? Like, is their defense going to be on the field that much? Like, I have to think of it that way. Like, I think the offense is going to be taking up a lot of time in possession. So, they might benefit from that as well.
Well, you can argue both sides. I mean, if the Dolphins are extremely explosive, they might be scoring quickly, putting the defense back.
Yeah, you can argue both sides.
So I don't know how much I'm going to take that into consideration, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. And then I'd say the biggest scare for me that I'm not sure of on my list would be number 10, Buffalo Bills. I'm just not sure. I think they lost some parts to the defense that, I think made them what they are. I still think they're going to have great players, but I just don't know how it's going to play out yet.
I'm actually more sure of the Saints being a top 12 defense than I am the Bills because for what you mentioned earlier, Mike, there's at least 6 games where they're not playing like the cream of the crop teams, and that's within the division.
That is true. I mean, that's a great point of view. Yeah.
Where you look at the Bills, oh no, you're playing some guys like if A-Rod's healthy, Jets offense can be explosive. We already know what the Dolphins can do, so like it's not easy there, but yeah, Bills just huge question mark. They lost a lot of guys. I think they still have the ability to rush the passer, and I think we're banking on Sean McDermott, right? He has a history in having great defenses, so we're assuming that he can continue that. But you just don't know. You just don't know with him.
Yeah, listen, I think what I'm getting out of this between the 3 of us, if you have the opportunity during your draft to draft a top 6 defense, just do it.
Yeah.
Maybe fall on the Miami Dolphins at 7 or the Philadelphia Eagles at 7 based off of our listings. I think if you fall on the Eagles in one of your guys' lists or the Dolphins on one of my lists, it's like, okay, I just got away with one that I can breathe with. I'm shocked that the Jacksonville Jaguars didn't make your list though, Chris. I mean, that defense is going to be fantastic this year. That pass rush is phenomenal.
Yeah, I do like the Jags.
So I'm a little shocked at that, but like, listen, if you can land 1 through 6, you go with the Dolphins. Listen, Chiefs, Bills, Texans, they're getting on these positions on these lists based off of the fact of their prior production and the fact that we think that it's going to be sustained within the top 12 talent. Yeah. But if you want to draft a team that you are going to feel good about, get one in the top 6, and you're in really good shape.
Yeah. If there's a run on defenses,
take one of these and
you better hop on it.
Yeah.
Because if not, you'll regret it later.
And think about it, right? 12 team league, right? If you're in a 12-team league, if you get the top 6, right, that's going to help you. You're in the top half of your league. If you're waiting, that bottom half of the league is going to get real steep really quick.
Yeah. Can't tell you the amount of games I lost based on defense. It's like, oh, I'm up 3, and then I check the next morning. It's like -3. I'm like, are you kidding me? You couldn't get me a point? Like
that's what I'm saying.
So you want a quality defense for sure.
Right, you do, and you made a good point. Not only can selecting the right defense give you points, but it could, if you mess this up, it'll take away points, which could be the difference between that win or loss. That's neck and neck when you wake up Tuesday morning after the Monday Night Football game. And we all know that it's all happened to us at least once. try to avoid it. Get yourself the right team. All right.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, thank you everyone for tuning in to the defensive fantasy rankings on today's show. All right. We have our next show coming up this Wednesday where we're going to be doing more fantasy rankings. So tune in then. But until then, I want to say thanks again for Dr. MJB, the legend, CJ, the sports enthusiast. I'm Dr. Mikey B, and we'll catch everyone on Wednesday. Take care.